You're listening to the Becoming Catholic podcast. Hi, my name's Eliza. In 2019, Jesus Christ saved me from an unbiblical, secular, and New Age life. After feeling like there was something missing in my evangelical walk, God gave me yet another grace I didn't deserve. He opened my eyes and heart to the Catholic faith. Join me as I share my honest journey of what it's like to become Catholic. My intention for this project is that it's a bridge of understanding for those who know and love the Catholic faith and those who are curious, questioning, or somewhere in between. If you love the Lord, I invite you to join me each week and let's learn what it's like to become Catholic together. Hit the follow or subscribe button, and if you like the episodes, please leave a kind review. I'm so grateful you're here. Let's get into this week's episode. Hello, sweet angel. Welcome back to another episode. I am so happy to be here with you today. Today, I want to talk with you about Lent. I want to talk about the 3 pillars of Lent. I know that there are so many people talking about Lent right now, so I'm not going to go into a deep dive of what Lent is, but I am thinking about the people who listen to this who it might be your first Lent. And so I do want to give a little bit of an overview so you have an understanding. And then I want to share with you what I'm doing, my plan for Lent, and how I plan for Lent and all those things. But I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer that I'm a little crazy and I like to do a lot. And I also bake into my crazy plan, like bare minimums and non-negotiables. So things like on a crazy day or a crazy week, or I'm sick, or just I can't rally myself to do the things that I had planned, I will have a non-negotiable bare minimum thing that I will do. So I want to break that down and help. I just find it to be very helpful to see what other people do and what works for other people and what other people's plans are, because it helps me to think outside the box a little and dream a little about what I might want to do. And I hope that just sharing my process of how to prep for Lent can be helpful for you. And I hope that this season of Lent is just so fruitful and beautiful for you. I want to start off by just saying a little bit about what is Lent. Why do we celebrate Lent? Maybe celebrate's not the right word, but why do we put an emphasis and a focus on the season of Lent in the Catholic calendar? And why is it important? Why should we care, right? Okay, so what is Lent? Lent, very simply, is a 3-pillar season of number 1, prayer, number 2, fasting, and number 3, almsgiving. And it begins on Ash Wednesday, which is next week, and it ends the sundown on Holy Thursday, which is the day before Good Friday. So it's a 40-day period of time, and I believe the weekend Sundays aren't counted in the timing of it. So just something to think about if you go and you count every single day on the calendar. It will be a little bit more than 40 days. But during Lent, what we do is we focus on these 3 pillars. We focus on prayer, we focus on fasting, and we focus on almsgiving. With the prayer aspect of things, we really focus on our time with the Lord. We are shedding all of the things of the world, all of the ways that the world tells us to live and do, which we should be doing anyway as followers of Christ, right? But especially during the season of Lent, we are focusing our relationship on God. And it's a beautiful time because we can just really choose to let things go. A lot of people do that. So you'll hear people saying, oh, I'm letting go of sugar, or I'm doing a fast from Instagram, or I'm not going to be on TikTok for this time. Although I've never heard anyone say that. But it would be really fruitful if they did. It's just things like that. You hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to let this thing go. I'm going to offer it up. I'm going to sacrifice this thing that I enjoy, and I'm going to focus on my relationship with God during Lent. That should always be at the top of everyone's list. We focus on a relationship with the Lord, and it can be easier to do that when we let go of things that are distractions or hindrances to our relationship with God. The second pillar is fasting. And so fasting is something that has been, like, we see it in the Old Testament, right? But we also see it in the New Testament, and it was very much a part of the early church fathers' practices when the early church was established. And I think in modern times, it has been neglected. I have shared with you before how I have a nervousness or I'm afraid or I'm timid of really stepping into fasting in a deeper way, like a bigger fast. But the requirement is that we would fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. So what the requirement would be that you would have 2 small meals and then one like regular size meal that's not bigger than those 2 earlier meals from the day. So that is what you do on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. And then traditionally, sometimes this isn't required, but just so you know, most of the time people will also fast on Holy Saturday. So just something to think about if you do want to do that, but it's not required. It's just a bonus practice that people will do. You can look into that for yourself if you'd like. And then the last kind of requirement is that you would abstain from meat every single Friday of Lent. And technically, the church, depending on your diocese, though, requires that no matter what, all year long. So if you already do that, you're already set and ready to go. And if that's something that you're like, okay, I want to do that moving forward, then Lent is the perfect opportunity to start doing that. So that's the part about fasting. And really, what is fasting? It's about surrendering to what our body wants with food and teaching us the virtue of self-control, self-sacrifice. It can be something that's very beautiful and very fruitful. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that aspect of it. The plan that I'm going to share with you is 3-tier plan. And one of the tiers is a focus on the body. I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. So that's pillar 2 of Lent is fasting. And then the third is almsgiving. So almsgiving is really beautiful and wonderful. And technically, it's one of the things that we talked about in the last episode where we're meant to be taking care of and supporting the needs of the church and the faithful. And so this almsgiving aligns right perfectly with that. And so basically what almsgiving is giving alms. And it's a way of sharing the gifts that God has given you in your fruitfulness, your abundance, your money, the things that God has an overflow and has given to you. And that can be even your charisms, the gifts that God's given you personally. One of the things that's really cool is I don't know if I've told you this, but I have been searching and interviewing for a spiritual director. And that's a whole other thing that's crazy that if there's interest, I'll do an episode on it. What a spiritual director is. Do you need one? All the details and things that go into finding a spiritual director. But that's definitely for another day. But in my process of finding a spiritual director, I have found this great parish that's very near me, but isn't my main parish. And they offer all these great classes and courses and things. And one of them is a charisms class. So I'm very excited that in the fall I'm going to be taking that to really be guided in how to find what my charism is, because charisms are the gifts that God has given you that you are just so joyful and excited to share with others. So it could be many things, right? Like you could have multiple charisms, but you usually have one that just really shines through. And you're just blessed in this area. It feels really good to offer up your charism, your gift, and to share it and to use it. And it's just very special. And one of the things you could do, aside from giving alms in terms of money, like you could be providing for your church or local charities, or there's a need in your community. But there are also, it's nice to think outside the box of what can I do to give alms? Let's say you have no money you're stretched thin. Things are expensive right now. Just look at the whole situation with the eggs. Oh my gosh. But thinking about your grocery bill and how things are expensive, and then you feel bad, right? If you don't have enough to give, right? Quote unquote. What you can do, and something to think about, and something that I'm doing, is to pray about what are the ways that I can give alms that has nothing to do with money, but has to do with my heart and what I can do, where I can give to others in other ways. And so through thinking about this and praying about it, one of the things that came to my mind was offering a rosary and praying for others. So you could pray for the conversion of sinners in your family or throughout the world. You could pray, right now, you could very specifically could be offering up a rosary for the Holy Father because he's sick and he's in the hospital. And so you want to pray for the Pope. You want to pray for people who are in your local hospital who are ill or sick. You could offer up a rosary every single day specifically for alms for the kids in the NICU, right? In the hospital near you, or people in the cancer center who are suffering with health issues. Or maybe there's someone very specific to you that you want to offer up your rosary to every single day for Lent. So something to think about. There are lots of ways that we can offer alms that is not monetary, and that you can feel useful, and you trust in your prayers, and you know that the Lord is hearing them, and that it feels really good to offer up a rosary that's dedicated to others in their suffering, in their need, and then maybe even that there will be fruit that comes from doing that rosary, because you'll have more ideas, or the Holy Spirit will speak to you in a way where you can offer your actual spiritual gifts in a way that maybe you're praying about and you're not sure about yet because it hasn't quite solidified in your mind of what you could do. That could be a starting point for you in terms of this third pillar of almsgiving for Lent. I hope that was a good enough brief overview of what Lent is. It's really just a penitential time, a somber time, a time where we're really being called to let go of anything that's extra, anything that's superfluous in our lives, and really be just bare bonesing it and making a plan to come closer to Jesus. And if you're like me, this feels like let's say that you're about to be confirmed, God willing, on the Easter Vigil of 2025. That's less than 60 days away. It's 50-something days away, which is crazy. It's felt like it's been a decade of preparation for me because I've wanted this for quote unquote so long, right? It's like a little less than 2 years, but still, that's a lot. And it feels very exciting, but also feels, oh my gosh, this is scary. It's happening kind of thing. And I'm very excited, but I'm also nervous. There's a lot of emotion happening. I'm probably going to do a whole episode on that because I think it's pretty relatable of all the stuff that I've been crying about and going through, but also excited about and also sad about letting go of. It is a death, and a death to self to open up to the true fullness of life with Jesus. I've had all these crazy lofty goals and ideas and dreams, like fantasizing, obviously, of probably not even really logically doable, of, Lord, I really just want to purify myself as much as possible, which really truly means, Lord, please purify me as much as possible in the season of Lent, because to me, this is the most important Lent that I've ever experienced or ever will. I think this will be my third Lent that I've ever really, truly focused on, because growing up without being raised in the faith, really, I didn't have an experience of Lent. I just remember kids coming to school with ashes on their forehead, a few of them, because there were a few Catholics. But where I grew up, it was mostly Protestant. And then the Protestants that I know didn't celebrate Lent at all. And I never even really heard of it until I met my husband. So so this is only going to be my third Lent that I get to participate in. But this one feels like the most important one because it's like a preparation before I come fully into the church. And so with that in mind, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to decide to create a plan like I always do. The last 2 years, I also created like a Lent plan of like books that I was planning to read, things that I wanted to do, things I wanted to let go of, what I wanted to focus on, that kind of thing. And so I want to share with you a little bit of what I am doing and what I have already prepared. And I'll give you just a loose idea so that you can possibly use this same kind of plan to think about for yourself what you think is important, what you want to focus on, why this Lent is important to you. I think is the number one thing that you would just start with is just sitting down with a journal or praying with the Lord, asking the Holy Spirit, and allow the words to come, to drop away everything that isn't important or isn't valuable or is like ego based, and really truly ask the Lord to just reveal to you why come in closer to Him this Lent. Why is it important to you? And just talk to Him about why you think that it's important, because I think that is great to have a frame of reference of why you want to do Lent. Why do you want to participate? For me, I really want to just be so pure and just a little lighter and more just, I want to drop away all of the main thing for me was distraction. When I was like doing a little review of how things have been going, distraction is the biggest one for me. Wasting time instead of time it could have been where I'm praying or I'm doing a rosary or I am helping someone who needs me, like something like that. Figuring out certain things that are askew and messed up in my life right now, things that I'm panicking about. I'm worrying. I'm self-focused. I'm like freaking out, like all that kind of stuff, instead of putting my eyes and my gaze on my Savior. Number one is to decide why you want to do Lent and why it's important to you. If it's not important to you, you're just not going to follow through on it. It's not going to be interesting to you. You're not going to have a reason to continue going when it gets hard. So if you can frame, like create the little foundation for yourself of this is why I'm doing it and this is why it's important to me. Lord, give me strength to keep going every single day, because 40 days is a long time. It feels really good and fast the first week and a half or so. And you're like, you have that momentum. But then, especially if you don't have a vision for yourself of why, it just gets hard. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I would say that I did was, and I mentioned this a little bit already, I sat down and I thought about what are the main things that I need to work on right now. I picked 3. And the main one for me is distraction, like I already mentioned. Just too many things pulling at me that I'm allowing to pull at me that aren't important. And the end result has been distraction and less time in prayer and less time in closeness with Jesus. So for me, I wanted to look at, okay, this is the main thing that's happening for me. With that in mind, what am I going to do through Lent to make sure that I'm not distracted? So for me, that's no scrolling, and then I either need to fast from YouTube or I need to set a limit for the day. So I'm definitely going off of Instagram. Instagram's just a time suck for me. It's not even relevant. I don't even post on there really anymore. So why am I on there kind of thing? I really just send silly things to my friends and to my husband to laugh about. And that's fine, but it's just too much time on there for myself. So I've decided I'm going to let go of that through the season of Lent. And then I'm also discerning whether I'm going to do 30 minutes or an hour of YouTube a day or none at all. The none at all is like a lot because I don't know. I go on YouTube to learn things. Like I'm always watching Catholic-y things. But there are so many things I'm watching that are almost call-out videos, like debunking Protestant beliefs of like why Catholicism is wrong, that kind of stuff. And I don't need that. I'm already firm in what I believe as why I'm becoming Catholic. I don't need more of that kind of information. But there are certain interviews. I really like Lila Rose and I like Matt Fradd. And so I like to watch their things. But their episodes are like 2 or 3 hours long. that's not going to work for me. And it is a time suck. I have to decide if that's going to be something that I let go of completely, because I just think about all the things I could be doing that would be more fruitful with God than being on YouTube. Do you know? That's just a thing for me that I'm focusing on. I want to feel a certain way at confirmation. I want to be in a certain headspace with Jesus at confirmation. I want to do some healing around how I feel about myself and some of the very specific healing things that I need to work through, especially with family things with Jesus. And that's going to take a lot of time and effort. And so I just need to minimize that distraction. Another thing is that the distraction also connects to my avoidance of prayer. I'll be distracted for a certain amount of time, and then I'll be like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have the time to do the rosary. I don't have time to do the prayers for the holy souls in purgatory, which is a huge devotion of mine that I love. And so when I'm putting that off, it's making me feel guilty because I'm like, those prayers could be useful for the holy souls. And I'm saying that I don't have time because I was being selfish, that kind of thing. So that's something I want to work through during Lent. And finally, there's another pillar for me that I want to focus on, and that is honoring my body. I always choose something to do for Lent that is connected, like one thing that's for the body, one thing that's for the mind, and then one thing that's for the soul and spirit. For me, what I like to do is just pull back on sweets and sugar. I know that can be something that people do, but my reasoning behind this is that I want my sweetness to come from the Lord during Lent, and I want to let go of sugary things during Lent because it helps me to lean into the sweetness and the joy of God during Lent instead of doing that in an unhealthy way with my own self, with my body. That's one of the layers of my Lent program, is that I let go of something that my body wants that isn't nourishing, that isn't really technically great for me. And that can be like a sacrifice that I'm letting go of. If there's a feast day during Lent, like there's the Annunciation on March 25th, and there's also the Feast of St. Joseph, which is my husband's patron. So we'll do something on those days. We also get to do our convalidation. So we're validating our marriage in the Catholic Church on our actual wedding anniversary. So I'm really excited about that. And so that will be a celebratory day. So those would be the 3 days that we would be feasting instead of fasting. But I know those ahead of time, and those are strictly the only days for me to do anything different or special. So that's what I do is, first of all, I create the foundation of like, why is Lent important to me and why do I want to focus on it? Then I look through my life and see what are the areas where I'm struggling, or there could be improvement, or I'm allowing myself to push away from God instead of to grow closer to Him. And what can those things be? And so the main one for me was distraction. And then after that, I choose action steps that go with these things that I thought about, right? When I'm thinking about where I'm struggling the most, then I'm like, okay, what could the action steps be? And then the action step for distraction is, like we already talked about, I'm going to let go of Instagram, and I'm going to heavily reduce or let go of YouTube for Lent, that kind of thing. So you just put it together for yourself of what kind of plan could you put in place for yourself that you want to focus on, that you want to be diligent with, that you want to just be consistent and proactive all throughout the season of Lent. And then the last thing that can be really helpful is that you think about the layers of your life. If you want to create a goal or an action plan or a step or some to-dos in relation to your body. So that would be one thing. Then you would do the same thing for your mind. So for me, that's almost always usually learning things that I can do that are bringing me closer to Jesus. I created a whole list for this, like all the things that I could do when I'm bored. And what I did was I wrote down a section for body, for mind, and for soul and spirit together. So there's these 3 areas. And at the top, I would say, okay, no processed sugars, no junk food, right? That would be the body one. And then under the body section, what I did was, what are all the things I could do, because I'm going to have more time in my schedule to do that nourish my body and that help me feel really good in a healthy, godly way, right? Like I could learn to bake or cook something that's wonderful that my husband would love for dinner, right? I could take a class on healing or herbs because that's one of my interests. I could go to bed earlier. I could make herbal infusion teas to nourish myself throughout the day. I could put into my phone stretch breaks every hour, every other hour or something. I could do facial reflexology because that's something I enjoy to do. I could spend time outside. I could go on walks. I could call up a friend and go on a walk together. I could do prayer walks, those kinds of things. I could paint my nails because I love to do that. I could do breath work and scripture because that's something, those 2 things coming together that I really enjoy. So there's just all these things that I list of things I could do because I'll have more time to do them. And then I did the same thing for the mind. So the mind is more like reading my catechism or doing a Bible study, doing Lectio Divina, reading the daily readings for the day, spiritual book list. There's a devotional that I'm going to do. I just got this book that I've wanted for a really long time called Personal Prayer from Father Boniface Hicks, who I really enjoy, and Father Thomas Acklin. And so I'm planning to just go through that and study prayer, study how to pray. And I think that will be something that will be really helpful for me. I would list all of the things in the mind section. And then I did the same thing for the soul and spirit section. So what are the things for my soul and spirit that will be fruitful during Lent? The first thing is fasting. Another thing to do is learning about fasting, or for me, looking into or researching how the early church fathers fasted. Like, what were their practices? As soon as the church was established, what were they doing? One of the things that I want to do is try to go to more like Monday through Saturday masses instead of just the obligation days. I want to find an adoration chapel. I know that there's one near me and I haven't gone to it yet. There's also a shrine to St. Joseph, and I forget, there's a Dominican place near me that has a copy of the Shroud of Turin. So I want to go to that. So basically visiting holy places. I think that could be really nice. I want to observe certain saint days. And then even, let's say, because every day that there is a saint day on the Catholic calendar, even just looking up and reading a sentence or 2 about the saint of the day during Lent could be really fun. Making sure I'm praying before meals. My goal is to do 2 rosaries a day. And this is just my list of things I could do. This is not what I'm doing every day, but I'm just giving you ideas of what I have put down so that it can help you to think about what, if you want to do this, what you could do. Basically, this is a list of things that I could do that would be fruitful instead of wasteful, which is, a lot of what I feel right now is that the Lord has given me time. Every day that He gives me life and air to breathe, He's giving me more time to come closer to Him, to have a good relationship with Him. And I'm never going to have another Lent again where I'm preparing to be confirmed into the church. And so I find that this is just going to be I'm hoping that it's just a really special time that I get to spend with the Lord, of my hope for the future of heaven, obviously, but also my hope of being Catholic and living a good Catholic life. That this is the time before I get to receive the Eucharist for the first time. And it's just like this waiting period, this excitement, this hopefulness, this desire to want to be closer to Him. Right now, I only do the spiritual communion during Mass, and soon I'll be able to actually receive. And so I think there's a place of just this hopefulness and this wanting and this desire, because after we're confirmed, it will be different. That relationship will be even closer. I hope that kind of breakdown of what you could do, like having a list of things that you could try. It's almost like a menu of options that you could look at every day, and you could say, okay, I have 5 minutes. What's something I could do for my body right now that would maybe de-stress me, or maybe give me space to go outside and just have a prayer walk with the Lord? Or maybe I want to start a new hobby. Like for me, I've gotten back into knitting and I love knitting. And that's also something that can be, if the pattern is relaxed and easy and like you can easily memorize it, then after you've memorized it, you're just knitting and I'm just thinking about Jesus. And one really cool thing, this is probably very specific to knitters or crocheters, is that St. Faustina was a crocheter. I don't know if you knew that. But one time in her diary, she said something to Jesus about how she was crocheting this thing. I don't know what she was making, but she was crocheting and she was asking the Lord to let it be so that with every stitch, it would be that many people that she would be able to save, that she would be able to convert, to bring them to the Lord. And that's definitely a prayer that's been answered because St. Faustina is just such a treasure and she did so much for the Holy Church. And so I think about that too when I'm knitting a sock and you like step back and you look at all of the stitches that are woven into knitting a sock. And I also am praying to the Lord, Lord, please allow me to be as fruitful as the number of stitches in the sock, that I could be helpful for your kingdom, be fruitful in some ways, be able to bring people to you, Lord. And that's just always my prayer. So that's just something fun that I learned that I just thought was really cool. That was actually like, oh, I get that in a way because I'm a knitter. So that makes sense. And it's so beautiful that St. Faustina brought so many people to God. If you want to take it like the next step past just the list, like I'm going to be doing, the next step would be that you would create a non-negotiable so that it's like your bare bones minimum of things. So you could pick one thing for the body every day, one thing for the mind, and one thing for your soul and spirit. So that could be that your body every day. You're not, like for me, not having processed sugars and junk. So that would be my bare bones. If I do nothing else that day, that would be the thing I do. And then for the mind, it would be probably that I would read the daily readings and I would do the devotional that I'm committing to doing. And then for soul and spirit, I could choose something like I want to do a prayer before every meal, or I want to do the 2 rosaries a day, the regular rosary and then the almsgiving rosary. Or I want to do a PM examine. I want to examine my day. So you could just pick, like, again, those lists can be meant to be like a menu. But then there's these things that you will do every day that are non-negotiable for you in your Lent season to bring you closer to Jesus and to bring you closer to these 3 pillars of Lent, which are prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. Another thing that you could do is then you could take it one step further and you could look at your week. So are there things specific to Sunday that you plan on doing? So I'll give you an example. My husband and I are really into the Formed app. It's been very helpful going through our RCIA and watching some of those together and just having conversations and learning things together. So on Sundays, our goal is always to make the day holy, to go to Mass, for sure. That would be the non-negotiable for the day. And then an extra would be maybe he and I would pray a rosary together on Sundays. Maybe we would go through the Formed app and we would find like a movie on one of the saints, or we would do a video on one of the sacraments, that kind of thing. That would be a way that we would make the day holy and also just be more focused on the Lord through Lent. And then you could do the same thing on Monday. Look at your schedule and then say, okay, today I would like to do this one thing aside from my non-negotiables. Maybe you can only Monday through Friday do your non-negotiables. And so it's like a smaller list. So that's something to think about. I would say I'm probably going to keep my Monday through Thursday very chill with just probably my non-negotiables. And then on Friday, I'm going to make sure that I go to Mass every Friday during Lent. And I am, probably just going to do a few more things, like maybe do a meditation on the Sacred Heart of Jesus or do Stations of the Cross, something like that. I'm basically trying to take off as much as I can on Fridays and really just offer that day up to the Lord. And that feels really good for me and what I'm able to do with my schedule. Okay, now that probably feels crazy and overwhelming and a lot because it is. I shared a lot, but just for the ideas that it might offer you, that you might have ideas about what you can do and what will work for you in your schedule and your life. Remember, that Lent is really about letting go of things. You don't have to add more things in unless you're feeling like your relationship with the Lord is off and funky and not in the place where you want it to be. Then I would say instead of letting go of something, you start adding in a few practices. You add in the rosary, or you add in some kind of devotional. You read some kind of spiritual book throughout Lent, or you're going to know when you sit in prayer and you think about it, what you could add in instead of take away. Because Lent is so much more than us just not having sugar. It's like the trope. It's like sugar and social media people let go of. And they're great. It's a great thing to do. But also, if you're not in that place where you can commit to that or commit to something like that, where what seems more traditional, really start to just think for yourself, what can I do during Lent to bring me closer to God? And then that would be a perfect way to start. Just one thing. It doesn't have to be a huge list of things unless you want it to and you want to commit to that. But just start with your non-negotiables, the things you want to do no matter what every single day, and commit to those during Lent. And then use, your list and pick from it when you need to. Okay? So that is what I want to share with you today. I'm so grateful for you for being here. If you like these episodes, please keep sharing them with your friends and family. And if you know anyone who's converting, please send them my way if you think that they would receive any insights from these episodes. I know this one was a little bit long, but I just had a lot to share with you. I am very excited for what's to come. Lent is a wonderful season, and I hope that your Lent is so fruitful and wonderful. Next week, probably on Monday or Tuesday, I'm going to have an episode about the sacramental of getting ashes, which is going to be a really great episode. Yes, you can receive ashes. You get to go up. You don't have to sit in your seat if you're not a Catholic yet. You can receive ashes on Ash Wednesday. So we're going to talk about that in the episode, and it's all very exciting. I can't wait to share more with you, and I'll see you next week in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It means the world to me. And because you know that we're a new show, it would be so amazing if you could do one of two things for me. First is if you would be willing to write a 5-star review. You can go wherever you're listening to the episode right now. Just quickly type in that you love this episode, give it 5 stars, and honestly, I'm so grateful for you for doing that. The second would be if you'd be willing to share about the podcast. The more that we share about it, the more people know it exists, and the more people we get to talk about the Catholic faith together. And that's just always so important and so special. And so if you'd be willing to share it on socials or text it to your best friend, or even if you want to just share it with that person that you always talk to about faith-based things, and you think that they would also enjoy the content here, I'd be so grateful for that. So I just want to say again, thank you so much for being charitable with me in the nerves and the excitement of sharing my conversion story to the Catholic faith. I hope that this episode helped you in some way. I hope that the future episodes continue to pour into you and that you start to see the uniqueness of the way the Lord is moving in your life and drawing you in towards Him. If there is ever any way that I can pray for you, all you have to do is send me an email, info@elizacc.com, and I'd be so grateful to do that for you. Okay, I can't wait to share more with you soon. I'll see you in the next episode.